Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'm sure you're aware, water and minis don't mix well. But given the amount of water that came out of my sill, I bet there's some of you wondering how bad it actually got. Best go and find out, shall we? Now, before I get to the repair work I'm going to need to do, I'm going to quickly address a couple of comments, because there were more than a few commenting that water's a bit clean, insinuating that maybe I had filled the sill with water myself. I can assure you I did not do that, but let me show you what I think did happen. 99% of the time, the Mini lives under a cover like this. It's not an expensive storm force cover or some posh waterproof cover. It is in fact a Halford's own brand small car cover. Don't get me wrong, it's huge because there's actually room back here for me, behind the Mini, and the cover to be on. And what you see here is a lot of rust and these seams, and it gets a bit thin up here in places, and it's a couple of years old. It keeps the worst of the rain off, but some does still find a way inside. Now, if you remember, somewhere around the middle to late April, I think it was, in late teens, early 20s, we had quite a torrential downpour. It rained hard. Evidence of this can be seen in here. This whole back of the car was additionally taped with the plastic masking stuff, covering any access for water to get in easily. And yet, if you look in here, you can see water has been running through. So I am going to have to take this boot floor out again, but loads of dust and stuff got washed off the back of the car and got washed in here. And then it got washed down there and it got washed out. So there's no direct way for the water to get from here into the sills, but that does mean that lots of water was up here on the window seals. And these window seals, they're not new by any stretch of the imagination. Neither are these ones either. Lots of water deluged down, and I think it's just wicked its way under the rubber seals and found its way inside the car. You can then see evidence of this trickling down in this gap here, rotting the little bits of dust that were in there. So I think it's probably come down the back window, possibly evidence of water flowing on the back of the parcel shelf there, and it's come through, dripped its way down, and where does it go? It goes down there into the sill. And I have had the cover on and off a lot lately, so I think maybe I've damaged the cover, more water's found its way in than normal, and hey presto, sill full of water. But the damage under there, now that I've cleaned it up, I said it wasn't bad, and it really isn't. A couple of spots need attention. One's my fault, the other is time's fault, I believe. So what's my fault? That's probably the best one to cover first. That's down here at the front of the car. What you see here is an angle grinder slice. So yes, this is quite ugly looking here, but it is all just surface rust. It looks horrendous on camera, but it really isn't. But what I did when I cut the old sill off, I went a little too far and I sliced through the bottom there. So that's going to need a little bit of weld on both sides just to make sure it is sound as a pound. If I lift the cover out the way, you'll see where I did it. Just there. But everything else here is actually in really good shape. I cleaned it back to bare metal. I've taken the rest of the sill off. I've taken off as much of the weld line over here. And all of this here, it looks bad, but it actually isn't. The worst of the damage can be found here. So a little bit of quarter panel, a little bit on the Heelboard. Obviously, as I pointed out in the last video, this hole here on the securing plate for the bolts, and it does get a little bit nasty and crusty as we come down here, but that honestly does kind of continue. There's a little bit here that needs a bit of attention, and on the inside you can see it's kind of almost like all the way, just a bit of floor round the back here. So I might just do a quick slather of floor through there, but I've got a theory as to why this end has rotted so badly. Now, you may or may not know, I built this car once already. It hit the road mid to late 2007, had some great fun on the road, couple of track days, couple of open pit lanes, had a real good bit of fun with this car, and then wife, house, kids. It had 9 years sitting on a trailer under a cover, and it was sort of slightly back at that angle. Now that I know the water's a letting in window, that could well be what happened here. Or while I was working on the front of the car with the car up at that angle, again, moisture finding its way in, not finding its way out. That could easily be where that rock came from. Has been a couple of years since the car's been here now. So it's slowly rotting away as I'm trying to repair it. It's mini life. So did I fill my sills with water from the hose? That's the stupidest thing that you could possibly do. So God no, there is no way I would have done that. It honestly was literally rain and it had probably only been in there for a week. So let's keep our fingers crossed the other side is nowhere near as bad. So what's the plan today, Nick? Well, today I'm going to break out the angle grinder and I'm going to start cutting away at the car until I find good metal that I can actually weld to. This might be filmed over the course of a few days. Okay, I'll admit it, that is somewhat of a bigger hole than I was intending to cut, but it's quite difficult to cut things in here, and so I cut things to make jobs easy, if that makes sense. And I've made a little slice here, but this little slice is probably going to get a little bigger. Why is that, Nick? Why does that slice need to get bigger? Let me show you. I last rebuilt the car. This panel here got replaced. You can see there's a weld line here, and over in the corner there's a weld line there. It had a new doorstep. That's part of the ugliness you can see, is a really bad weld on the inside that you're never going to see, but I'll make it tidy anyway. So this edge here is actually in pretty good condition. It's only when you get to the original rear quarter that things start getting a little thin and flaky, and they didn't come off so well. There's not really a lot left of that panel. So I went rooting around in the garage, and what did I find? I found Dave. Well, at least a sill. And it's not just any old sill. It's a Rover sill. A Rover Oversill, I assume, or it's a Rover Mark 1 sill. I can't quite fathom exactly because it's quite so deep and it's got a round jacking hole. Doesn't add up for me. So I think it was an Oversill of some, or a repair panel of some sort, but definitely a Rover panel. Definitely used to be Dave's. Thank you, Dave. And you'll notice that end is missing. Why is that end missing, Nick? Well, that's why. So it's actually got the right curve for the side of the car. Minis aren't actually straight down the side. They're actually, ever so slightly, they bow outwards a little bit. And this has the right curve. So I have cut this, and I'm going to do a little bit of cut this to make it fit the hole that I cut here kind of thing. And I've gone too long because I need to go too long to make it fit, but that gives me that kind of repair edge there. It sorts out this. I might go a little bit further in here, but you know, you get the gist. That's going to get repaired. Then my sill will fit nicely on there. I've also got a lot of other kind of conveniently shaped metal which I can put in these gaps here. More than likely this back edge is going to get this piece that was also on there that was cut off, because it's just that little bit taller. I can make it work. I've got the spot weld holes in there. I might do that, I might not. I might end up making another piece for this, but we have options. And as for our little friend in the corner here, I think what I'm going to do is just hold a little piece underneath and I will weld it into there's actually no rot around here. That little piece went all by itself and there doesn't appear to be any other rot there. So yeah, I'll hold a piece underneath and weld through from the top, and then make it look pretty on top, and then you'll never see it underneath because it lives up there under the subframe. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you're never going to see that. So that's where we're up to today. Right, it's getting late. The kids have got to go to bed, and I've got to go to bed because I'm on early shifts. So let's crack on again tomorrow afternoon. Okay, new dawn, new day. Been out here for a couple of hours, just beavering away this afternoon. I may have cut a little bit more of the floor out. Let me show you quickly. So you may notice that the gap here is considerably bigger than it was. Reason being, once I sort of like cleaned up the inside edge and the outside edge, I actually found that, you know, a tiny little bit on this edge here, and it stops here, and it's not a problem after this, which is lucky. But actually this whole sort of edge along here had blown out as well. So I thought, you know what, while I'm here, you know, do the job once, do it properly. So I've done that, and as you may be able to see here, I have made a replacement part for the back of my Heelboard. It's held in place with a magnet. That clamp there should tell you that the welder is out. So let's get this bugger in place. While I admit this side is not pretty, my welding never ever tends to be, it is actually all in. I have gone around this bottom edge as well. There's this little blob here, which is a spot weld that pulled out as I was taking off the floor pan on the inside. And in here, yeah, it actually doesn't look so bad. You can see decent heat penetration all the way through, everywhere it needs to be. And yeah, that'll just tidy up nicely. I'm going to get the old 40 grit flap wheel on that now, flatten that down a little bit, and then maybe we can move on to making a rather large section of inner wing / floor. Now if you've made it this far through the video, thank you very much. Down in that corner down there, thumbs up button, go and give that a tap for me. I'd really appreciate that. If you're not a subscriber already, please do go and find the subscribe button, give it a tap, follow along the journey. And in the comments, if you've got any tips, if you can see what I'm doing wrong with my welding, if you've got anywhere that I should go and look to learn, as opposed to paying pennies to do a course, because if I spend pennies on a course, I can't spend pennies on the car. Please leave your advice, leave your tips, leave your YouTube channels to go and check out in the comments, and let's get the rest of this done. I think you'll agree that compared to my usual standard of panel repair work and how ugly it ends up looking, that has come out really, really nice. It's flatted off nicely, nothing's proud, and yeah, while I'm waiting for the paint to dry, I can get the floor pan bit made. Let's have a look inside. So there's actually a really, really nice kind of finish to that repair edge there. So what have I done differently? Well, it's twofold really. So I've I watch a lot of other YouTube channels and a lot of other people's pages, and I noticed a lot of people, they weld, wait, weld, wait, weld, wait, or they get an air gun like I was doing and they blow cold air at it and let it cool down, they move on, cold air, let it move on. So it's just learning more about heat management, I think, and obviously cleanliness. And then once it's done and in place, it's learning to take more time with the flatting of the welds. So I was letting the sandpaper do the work, just gently letting the weight of the sandpaper sit on there. It's a 40 grit flap wheel I was using, and just letting it slowly, but rather than trying to burn through it, let the sandpaper do the work. And it's really made a difference, as you can see. So hopefully, you know, the rest of the car can look nice. Never know your luck. Okay, moving on to the next bit. Heelboard's done. Let's get the inner sill made up and let's try and fill up this rather large chasm here. So after much effort, much taking it out, putting it in, taking it out, putting it in, we have the panel. Let's get that over in that corner there. It's a bit of a fiddle to get it where you want it, but once it's there, it's really quite a nice little shape. That one there, let's hold that down there with that magnet if it'll move. And this just, oh, not quite, it ducks in there. Ah. So, the smallest gaps I could possibly get, messed it up a little bit going over here, but I mean, yeah, I'll deal with that. I can always build off of this nice big chunk of metal here. So, really quite pleased with that. Let's clean everything up and get it in the car. I'd like to say that went as smoothly as the Heelboard repair did, but it didn't. Maybe I was getting a bit too rushed. I was going back to old habits, because old habits do die hard. Blew a few holes, but managed to plug them by realising I was probably putting too much heat in and letting things cool down. So as you notice, I zigzagged all over that. So yeah, let's have a look at how it looks now. So here it is. Got some nice little spots along here. The reason there's nothing here is because the lip on the panel that runs down here ends there. So there's, as was from manufacturer, spotted to here, a little bit of a gap. We are sealed down there. We are two sides spotted here, so I'm spotted underneath and there. And we've seamed all the way along. Probably the tidiest seam welding I've actually ever done. Obviously, yeah, learning the heat management really does help. So I can get a flap wheel on this. There are some bits that need a bit more, as I blew a hole here, and I think that was largely due to the gap not being tight enough, but also that I'd left some muck on the underside. So once I then got underneath and scrubbed that off in between parts of the time lapse, it all kind of went nicely. So I rejigged this weld down here because obviously it ended right next to this. I've made sure I've tied the roll cage foot into this panel as well. So yeah, that's that bit done. Probably got a bit of the floor's a little bit misshapen here, but I can deal with it. And as far as the underside goes, I am equally happy with everything we've got here. So the spots under there are awkward because they are uphill spots. I know this one hasn't quite, it doesn't look very nice. I can always deal with that when it comes to getting the sill on. So yeah, really pleased with how that's gone. Floor pan and inner sill has been repaired. There's the small matter of extending this plate. This plate here that holds the bolts on does actually come out and over here. So I'm going to make another bit of plate, and I'm just going to seam a joint down there and do a couple of spots, because there was two spots here and two spots there that held it on. So as much as that is attached, I'm going to make sure it's attached to the dimensions of the original piece. So yeah, that still needs to be done, but that is a job for tomorrow, because right now it's 9 o'clock at night. I'm losing daylight. As you can tell, I'm working by torch. So I think while I lay down here, it is time to say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.